Hey guys, and welcome back to another video. So it just occurred to me that while I have done Shadowmoon Valley multiple times, I didn't really do a review of the zone, and I do like to just put all my opinions of a zone in one place so that people know what I think. So in this video I'm going to go through the quests, the story, some of the key locations, the visuals, the music, and I'll just sort of round it off with my overall thoughts. So then, let's talk about the quests. Now, as I'm sure you all know, you start off this zone in the very top left of the map, where you basically just go and found your garrison. And then after that, they just send you out into the rest of the zone. And there are, I think, 3 different options. You can go to Embrari Village, and you can go to, I think, Elidor, and then somewhere else. And essentially, one of those branches is the main story of the zone, so you can continue that throughout the whole zone if you want. But the cool thing is, there's this zone which sends you off to this place called Elidor. Now this is kind of like sort of Draenor Heartland / farming style place. It's really cool, and the nice thing is that despite being just some random little side quest-ish style thing that's not the main story of the zone, it's still got its own self-contained story. I'm not going to spoil it or anything like that, but it's really cool just to see this little snippet of the map have its own story and its own quest line that is just one small little containing cohesive little thing. I think it's really nice how they've done that with a number of locations inside Shadowmoon Valley, and I suppose it actually does come off a little bit better than Frostfire Ridge in that regard. As for the main story quests, well, I think, actually as for basically every quest in this zone, mechanically, none of them are really particularly far out. In fact, much like with Frostfire Ridge, there are no sort of carrot-kicking quests like in MoP. It's not like you're being sent off on gunning ship runs and things like that all the time. It's really just your basic killing things, collecting things, and then doing some sort of cool story stuff, maybe fighting a mini-boss or something like that. Now, the actual mobs that you fight are generally rather, a little bit dull, but one of the cool things about the mobs that you fight is sometimes you'll get a mini-boss, and that mini-boss will have abilities. Now, those abilities don't always matter in terms of the damage that they deal, but there is a lot of potential there just to keep the gameplay interesting in that way. So, while a lot of people may just think, oh well, they haven't put in the crazy gimmick quests, damn, they're not trying. No, actually, I think that the quest flow is fantastic in Shadowmoon Valley, and one of the great things about it is that you don't have a gimmick quest every 5 minutes that's, pulling your action bars away, getting you to do something different and completely not really a part of the core Warcraft gameplay. No, you are going around, you're killing things, you're following a story, and I just like it. Now, of course, they do use gimmicky style things once or twice. There's one part of the final story of the zone where you hop on a Fey Dragon mount and you just, bomb some stuff, and then you hop on the ground and start fighting. And I think that it's nice that they have learnt to start using these gimmicky style things, but only in places where it really makes sense or matters. So that's really cool. And overall, I've just got to say that the quest flow is great, the mobs are fun, it's taking you to a lot of interesting places, and it feels kind of like an upgraded version of the Wrath questing, where in Wrath, you had all the various little sort of outposts and quest hubs that had their own story, but it just didn't flow as well as it does here. What I've got to say is that Shadowmoon Valley has an excellent flow, and it is backed up completely by excellent flight points to ensure that annoying travel never really breaks that flow up. So on the questing front, I'm really happy. One last thing about questing, and this is actually really interesting, but as you're just running around the zone, there are quests which are not located inside hubs. So for an example, you could just find an NPC who's, let's just say for the sake of argument, a hunter who wants you to help him hunt a few beasts. And that could be a random thing, well not random, but as in, it's the sort of thing you don't intentionally do, you just sort of find it during your exploration of the zone. There's plenty of that going on, and once again they have also implemented the bonus objective system, just like in Frostfire Ridge. So really, there is always a lot to do in the zone, and there's plenty of, say, rare mobs and elite quests that require 3 players. There's a lot of stuff like that, and it really does feel great. So overall, Shadowmoon Valley gets a ginormous thumbs up in terms of the quests. Now then, time to talk about story. Don't worry, there will be no spoilers here. Well, it involves the Draenor, obviously, you would have known that. And what's really cool about it is that it's a really solid story. They stick with a few characters. Those characters are done well in terms of their motivations, their writing, and all that stuff. It feels like a very Warcraftish story, you're fighting off a thing, You're not doing some big high-concept adventure. No, it's very just based to the core ideas of Warcraft, and that really does feel good. And the new ancillary character, Yril, is still, just pulled off really well. Great character. Vindicator Murad is also there. He's doing a great job. And the new Velen is fantastic. Overall, they've just done a really great job. And there are one or two moments in the story that are perhaps a little bit more poignant that are done via a in-game set piece, and then one via an in-game scenario. Well, two actually. And they also come off really well. They've learned to use that scenario tech, and basically to emphasize things that just wouldn't really work within a base zone. So they wouldn't want to phase you into a place with a giant army, because that would just be laggy and weird. It's just easier to stick you in a scenario, and it does work in a very just fun and seamless manner. You don't have to queue for these scenarios, by the way, you're just kind of automatically shoved into them. It works, trust me. So from a story perspective, all that stuff's fine. And the writing is okay, it's nothing that's going to win an award, but it's because, it's dealing with the core Warcraft themes. The writing is absolutely passable, serviceable, and in some cases, it's pretty fitting and good. While it's not amazing, it does at least fit within the sort of context of the story of Shadowmoon Valley, and therefore, it all works very well. So that's definitely nice, and the story itself, just in terms of what goes on from a lore perspective, is really badass, and that's also great. And then one or two of the little side zones inside Shadowmoon Valley, so the little quest hub places that have got their own self-contained story, their stories are actually great, and it's nice that they can just essentially tell a kind of novella, short story style thing by a little optional quest hub. Really well done in that regard. Now then, time to talk about the key locations inside Shadowmoon Valley. So, set piece wise, it's actually really cool in that all over the place there's just really pretty stuff. But the key places would really be, first of all, your garrison, then second, Anguish Fortress, which is the location of Shadowmoon Burial Grounds, then I'd say Elador, Embrari Village, the Dracorium, and I suppose Karabor itself. And these key locations are actually really well done. The Draenei-based ones look fantastic. They really are just a visual treat, which I'm really happy about. And they've all got decent lore behind them and things like that, which is cool. And in terms of them feeling like real places, I suppose it does work. Now, that's a bit of a hard thing to quantify, but let's just say that the main places within Warlords, or at least within this zone, certainly do feel believable, and they're just fun to explore and see for the first time. Now that really just leads us very well on to the visuals of the zone. I've got to say that Shadowmoon Valley is beautiful. It's got an amazing skybox, there are lots of just really pretty parts of the zone, especially when viewed from ground level. So there's some really cool little swamps with mangrove trees that have got this amazing looking moonlit glow to them. And yeah, it's just a really nice zone. It does have some dense forested areas that are rather dark, and then a kind of more bright middle plains. That also just, again, works very well. It's got an accelerated day-night cycle, with both the day and the night being very playable and feeling a little bit different, so that certainly works. And then, say, things like the Temple of Karabor are just amazing. God damn, it's so big, it looks amazing. I wish it was a hub city, but whatever, it's cool. So, on the visual front, once again, this zone is an absolute treat. And it's also very different from every other zone there. Just like the way that Frostfire Ridge is different from every other Warlord zone, so is Shadowmoon Valley. So many of these zones just feel incredibly unique that I really am impressed with what Blizzard has been able to pull off. Okay, so next we've got the topic of music. The music of this zone is very just atmospheric, it works well, and it feels immersive. Now, one of the, I suppose, criticisms I would have of WoW as it's went on is that instead of creating ambient zone music, they've just tried to create a separate music track which sounds really nice, the sort of thing you could listen to in your iPod. Well, while questing around, I don't think it's always as effective. So one of the cool things about the sort of main Shadowmoon Valley theme is that they have some slightly more ambient and tame variants of that theme that play more than the main kind of booming musical piece. And that works quite well. So overall, the zone music's very good. There's some lovely violin going on there. And yeah, it's relaxing as well, actually. That's another cool thing. So, again, a great job. And just for my overall thoughts, I do prefer this over Shadowmoon Valley because I think the quest flow's a little bit better. I think the story is perhaps a bit more awesome throughout. In that you meet some really cool characters. I think in Frostfire Ridge, you've got a really badass bit at the start where you have to deal with Bladespire Fortress. Then you've got a more dull bit in the middle, and then I think it ramps up to the end with this big battle that we haven't got to see yet. But right now, anyway, it just feels like the story's more balanced in terms of its awesome per minute factor. Still though, that's not to take anything away from Frostfire Rage, it's a stellar zone as well. In fact, both of these zones are brilliant. I mean, they're better than anything in Pandaria, and I'd say they're better than anything in Cataclysm, so I guess that's really all you need to know. Are they better than, say, Dragonblight, or maybe the Howling Fjord? I think that in some ways they would be, yeah. So I'm very impressed by this. Very, very impressed indeed. Anyway, that really is about it for the video. I know it just is basically 10 minutes of saying, OMG, Shadowmoon Valley's awesome, but you know what? Shadowmoon Valley's awesome, so take it. Anyway, look, let me know what you think about the zone, either if it's from your own beta experience or just from watching videos. I'd be just interested to hear what other people think about it, but that's really it for the video, so thank you very much for watching. Please like, subscribe, favorite, and all that cool jazz, and I will see you next time.